Welcome back to our second half of discussion. It's now time to take a look at the Looking Back panel. Joining me is Kick It Out game changer Zuleikha Chikh, and we are also joined by the National Football Museum representative Jess Furness. How are we both?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm not too bad. I cannot complain. And for yourself?
I'm all right as well.
Zuleikha?
I'm good, thank you.
Brilliant. Can you both start off by letting us know your journey into the football industry?
I don't know who's going to start here. I'll go. So I studied football, business and media at uni, starting from 2017, and I graduated last year. I've always been into football, mainly when I was supporting Leeds United as a young girl, and then through my head throughout sixth form and college and school, I just thought, why don't I just make this like into a full-time thing and go into football? I was always just interested in football media. Nothing else really interested me, like doing match reports, taking pictures, stuff like that, and especially the TV broadcast industry, which I do have some experience in. That's another passion of mine. So I'd say I've been involved in football now for properly 4 years, and it's been going really well so far. So like I was saying earlier, I'm at JD Football now. So the sports team there's actually more women than there is men, which is really good to see. And I've been speaking about how I want to be more female content, because on my interview last week, I mentioned how when you go down the Instagram page, all you can see are men, and there's just like no female whatsoever. And if you look on the page today, there's a lot of International Women's Day content out. So I'm really glad to represent the women that way and make sure our voices are heard. I have a blog called Legally Blonde, and that's I've been having since about 3 years. I initially started it off to get some experience in like article writing, stuff like that, social media, management. And then in the past couple of years, I just thought it's a huge passion of mine to get females into the football industry. Obviously, like the play on words with Legally Blonde. Sure, everyone's seen Legally Blonde, the film. What a good film. And it's all about like Elle Woods going out of the comfort zone into law. So it's like me. People might think when you first look at me, you wouldn't think I'm a football fan, but I'm absolutely obsessed, and I always will be. Like, you do get the people saying, are you just in it to impress boys? First of all, no, never. That's like saying females exist just to serve and impress boys, which will never happen. Like, if that ever happens to me, then my life has just gone extremely downhill, and that'll never happen. The amount of money I've spent on university as well, like, nah, I'd never do anything like that to impress a boy, ever. So yeah, that's pretty much about me. What about you guys?
Thank you, Jess. I'd just like to take a brief moment just to welcome Renuka Odedra into the conversation. She is one of our Racial Game delegate.
Yeah, better late than never, right?
How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Yeah, it's a lovely day today, and it couldn't be spent better than speaking to amazing women about, football and the underrepresentation of women in football, because it's such an important subject.
Renuka, just carrying on from Jess's response, I'll ask you the same question. Can you share your journey into the football industry?
Yeah, so, okay, let me start. It kind of all started for me when I dropped out of university, Manchester Met University, in 2014. And I took a gap year because of that, and I ended up kind of trying to find a way to figure out what I wanted to do. So I was doing a course I wasn't really enjoying, and it gave me the chance, an opportunity to figure out what I wanted to do. And I really have to give thanks to a lecturer at the University of Derby who talked to me and kind of forced me to say, you want to do sports journalism, because I was avoiding that for such a long time. I thought, you know, oh yeah, maybe I could just like learn about the media, I don't know. But kind of, I think there's an issue with the careers kind of progression at schools as well, because women are never placed in a position where they can say confidently from the beginning, I want to work in football. And it's kind of never there. So yeah, it kind of started from there. And in that gap year, I ended up doing a traineeship with the BBC Kickoff Traineeship, and it's basically where you go to your local radio station and you go there for 8 weeks and you do work experience. And it was around the Olympics then, so I can remember the journalists just going, yeah, you do your stuff, because we're busy with our stuff. So it was such a great opportunity for me and freedom to be able to go and do what I wanted to do. And I can remember kind of bumping into kind of a reserve triathlete on the streets of Derby. He was wearing his Team GB shirt, and I was kind of like, yeah, this is what I want to do. And from then on, I went to my local university. I did 3 years of journalism, media and communications there. But whilst I was doing that, the kind of most important thing I did was I signed up for volunteering at my local hospital radio station, because I wanted to get into broadcasting, and I just didn't know how I could do that beyond a traineeship regularly. So that was huge for me, because I was shadowing people at the radio station, learning how to broadcast on and off the air, producing stuff like that. And kind of one day, one of the station managers said, do you want to go down to the King Power Stadium and cover Leicester City live matches? And I can remember it's the year after they won the Premier League and they won the Champions League, and the first game was going to be a Champions League, and I was like, are you mad? You're going to send me to go and cover that game? But it was such a great opportunity, and I've always wanted to be on radio. As you can tell, I can't stop talking. And I love commentary. I love football commentary. I've always kind of mimicked football commentary, and I never really kind of put 2 and 2 together and go, yeah, this is what I love to do. So since then, I've been doing football commentary, and throughout the 3 years, I think that's the biggest kind of takeaway. I was doing university, but also on a Saturday or a Sunday, I was going down to the King Power Stadium and doing live commentary, and it was just such an amazing opportunity. And I love this topic, the underrepresentation of women, because 99.9% of the time I was in that press box, I was the only woman there. So yeah, and then since then, even when I was at university, I've been doing kind of internships, workshops. I've been like to radio stations, newspapers, you know it, and yeah, they lack diversity. That's the one thing I have learned as well. But by there, even apart from learning the skills and things like that, But yeah, that's how kind of my route into this industry was.
2 outstanding journeys into the football industry so far. Zuleikha, same question to you. Can you please share your journey into the football industry?
Yeah, it's been great listening to you both, and you've got some inspiring, and you've obviously got involved in loads of volunteering, and I'm really passionate about that as well. So, hi everyone, my name is Zuleikha, and I'm the current University of Central Lancashire Students' Union President. And I graduated last year from a Masters in Sports Business Management. And throughout my 4 years as a student, I immersed myself in a variety of sport and non-sport related volunteering opportunities through the FA, through the University Women's Leadership Programme and the Youth Sport Trust as a team leader. And then I further volunteered with the British Red Cross. I enjoyed doing, a role there outside of football and futsal, which is one of my passions. So when I did that through the Red Cross, I was able to meet those newly arrived communities, support them with, navigating the local area, understanding their challenges and how I can best support them. So a little bit of work I did there was signposting into free local football coaching sessions. And so I connected with some amazing people who I'm still friends with today. And I think we've got some of my friends on the call today, which is absolutely brilliant. So my kind of why is because I'm just passionate about increasing life chances for underrepresented communities through the power of sport, so they can thrive on and off the field. And I think we're going to be diving into that a little bit today as well. More recently, I joined the Muslim Women in Sports network on the youth committee as a volunteer project coordinator, where we're looking at raising awareness of Muslim women across the globe in sport. And we'll be delivering a virtual global summit this summer, centered around 3 key themes: athlete activism, business and leadership, and stories of inspiration. And when I was a student as well, like everybody on the panel today, I was selective with the opportunities I got involved in. So I was a student, and when I was a student, I took up this opportunity as the Kick It Out Game Changer. And I thought, what a great way to meet other students who want to get into the industry and learn from each other. And that opportunity provided me with a lot of insider knowledge of the football industry, but also exposed me to those contacts to understand that importance of networking.
Amazing, incredible responses so far. To each of you, what does underrepresentation mean to you? Jess, could we start with you?
Yeah. So pretty much all my life I've always just been the only girl who's been interested in football in like my female friendship group, or just in like my football friendship group. So say at university there was only like 3 girls in my lecture out of many other lads, and just always felt a bit outnumbered and underrepresented, and like now I just really want to change that. So in UCFB I did a dissertation on the perception of female football fans, and I wanted to like just dig deeper into what people actually think and where their behaviours and thoughts come from when they think of a female football fan. So that was really interesting. So yeah, just always being the only one really. Apart from like my job now, where there is more women than men, I've just always felt outnumbered, and like you always think people, you get men saying, for example, with like Alex Scott saying she's only there because she's a female and they have to employ her. So yeah, sometimes I feel like that. But now as I'm going older, getting more experience, I know that I do deserve to be there. And I really want to inspire other females to think exactly like that as well, because we do deserve to be there, and it's not just, we're not just there to tick a box, we do deserve it.
And Jess, congratulations again for breaking into the football industry. You definitely deserve to be in your position, because you've had to work to get to where you are. There was no handout. So congrats once more.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Renuka, same question to you. What does underrepresentation mean to you?
I think if you want to look at underrepresentation, you've got to realize what representation means. And I think it kind of reminds me of Riz Ahmed's speech at the House of Commons. You know, he made this important distinction between diversity and representation. And representation, I think, should be representing back. It should be kind of like a mirror effect. It should be representing back to the community. Well, the community. You should be representing the community, right? So when you look at the football journalism community, it does not represent the footballing community. It does not represent the people who play football. It doesn't represent the people who watch football. It doesn't represent the people who work in football, kind of beyond journalism, behind the scenes. So underrepresentation is really, you're doing a disservice to the entire footballing community, and I think that's such a big issue in journalism, because if you look at entry routes into journalism, it's middle class, it's privately educated, it's white men. You go into a newsroom and you're going to find 99.9% of the newsroom is white men, and I've found that the case when I've been to local radio stations, when I've been to national newspapers, when I've been to national radio stations as well. And it's such a shame, because you're letting down those individuals who enjoy football, and you're not see, what with underrepresentation, you're not going to represent them as individuals and the stories they want to hear. So for example, I can remember the most recent story about no Black or Asian minority ethnic individuals in the England women's team, and kind of the individuals reporting that story were mainly white individuals, white men and women. And it just does baffle me, because even when you look at women's sport now, it's mainly supported by white men or women. And I want to make that important distinction, because I'm speaking as a South Asian woman, and it's such a shame, because you think, can somebody do the story better? But I also think it's important that we don't label, Black or Asian minority ethnic individuals to report on diversity stories only. So we should be there to talk about football because we love football. So underrepresentation really, it means doing the community a disservice, because you're not reflecting back that community. And yeah, it's such a shame.
It is a shame, but again, like with Jess's response, your story is relatable to myself. You touched on something in your first response where you said that when you go to football matches, quite often you're the only woman reporter in the press box. And that is very relatable to myself. Quite often when I go to games for the Voice newspaper, I'm either the only woman reporter or the only Black reporter or the only Black female reporter. So it does feel quite strange, because when you look on the field of play, it is very diversified. So obviously there is work there that needs to be done. And that is the reason why Pro Game, Kick It Out to Raise Your Game exists, because our aim is to help the football industry. Because, we've given people like Renuka a chance to come into the football industry. Most recently, I'm sure Renuka won't mind me sharing that she has undertaken a successful work Eurosport. So thank you for that, Renuka.
I think is it
Zuleikha?
Yes, sorry, I think your voice might have broken up then. So yeah, I think they're both giving really great answers, and I see underrepresentation as the lack of diversity and visibility of women on and off the field. So football's our national sport. Yeah, when it comes to the women's game, there are so many barriers that still exist that's preventing women from progressing their careers. So gender, for example, it's intersects with other characteristics such as class, disability, ethnicity, to create even more complicated patterns of disadvantage. And what we do know is that the football industry is heavily built on networks. And a lot of my master's research explored this idea of networks a bit more, and how we can ensure we get women into those spaces, which we know are predominantly, white, straight, males dominated. So there are a few minority women in leadership roles, and sitting on sports boards, for example, and that's such a big issue. And we need, I guess, role models for girls to look up to. So I currently sit on the FA Asian Women in Football National Steering Group with the likes of Rimla Akhtar and Manisha Taylor. And these are, game changers. These are people who are trailblazers in the industry. And the amount of work that they're doing in terms of raising the profile, being that role model, and, I think she was just on Sky Sports the other day talking about getting more Asian players through the elite system. And these are the people that we need to start championing to ensure that our representation increases. And that kind of term around if you can't see it, you can't be it. So I think definitely that role modeling is really important. I think second issue around on the field, that kind of lack of Black and Asian females coming through the academy system, and the lack of representation in the England national women's football team. There was a really good article not so long ago by the Telegraph. And showing why is the women's national team so white, and just issues around the location of those regional talent centres in remote areas and not within those inner city areas. That's actually preventing young girls from accessing opportunities to get scouted. So we know class plays a huge part, and this comes along with financial barriers with transport, for example. And just more generally in terms of the industry, there is hidden codes and cultures. So understanding how they work requires a good working knowledge of the industry, and like we talked about, insider knowledge. And minority women experience that lack of progression opportunities compared to their white counterparts. And like I mentioned earlier, it's all about the football industry is heavily built on networks. And I think it's still the case that those people who hold senior leadership roles have become too comfortable hiring and promoting those that look, think, and act like them from their own circle. And I think it's still the case, it's not who you know, it's what you know. And yeah, it's really still the case. If if your face doesn't fit, you won't be hired. So it's quite big. But I think it's around, we're looking at playing here, on the field, but off the field in terms of that progression within the industry.
Brilliant. Another question to each of you.
Sorry, I didn't catch that.
Shall I repeat that, Renuka?
Sorry, I didn't catch that question.
My apologies. I think that might be my internet connection. So I'll repeat the question. How do you view change?
Oh God, that's a big question. I think in order to think about change, you need to think about why we require change. Why do we call for change? There's obviously something wrong in the system. There's obviously something amiss for us to require change and ask for change. And so when I think about change, I think about progression that comes beyond acknowledgement. I think there is wide acknowledgement, especially in journalism and football journalism, that we are not representative. And so I think change needs to come beyond somebody just saying, yes, we need to do something about this. It needs to come with a carefully thought out action plan for us to make active steps and put them in place to change the industry, because it's so, and I don't want to be disrespectful, it's so easy for somebody to come out and say we are not representative, so we need to do something about this. I can remember being in the room in a national radio station, and they were asking me, I was just there for the day shadowing, they were asking me, how can we get more callers from a diverse background to call in on our show? And I thought, well, look around your newsroom. It's not representative. There was only one other woman beside me, and I was just there for the day. I caught the train from Leicester to Salford, and I thought, well, if people don't see the football industry, as someone who looks like them, I think that you can see it, you could be a factor is so huge, and I really do believe in that. So change is really about, again, it's a football, as journalism should be a service to the people. You should be serving the people, and football journalism isn't any different. I think it's such a privilege to work in football, because you could have worse jobs. I think if the pandemic has shown anything, there are jobs out there that are harder to do and that are more important than football in the greater scheme of things. So working in football should be a privilege, but it shouldn't be so much of a privilege that you're gatekeeping individuals out. And so change comes in the form of lowering those barriers, looking beyond somebody who looks like you, because it's so comfortable to be in that bubble where you see your mates. You go in a newsroom and it's your matey mate, somebody who looks like you, somebody who you would have grown up around, and it's like, and I think this always crops up when there's an issue around race, and there's a story. You go back to that story about Raheem Sterling, and people all of a sudden go, oh, hold on a minute. We're not representative. So change needs to come. When I think about change, I think, especially in the football industry, serving who's going to consume that content, and lowering those barriers and allowing somebody different in, a representative individual of the community who loves football as much as you, believe it or not.
Fantastic response. Jess, can I ask you the same question?
So I think a really good positive change in football for females would be if we challenged males more. So, for example, on social media, if they sexually harass us or give us a sexist comment, something like that, just always outing them. You get people saying it's just banter or something like that, but it's just not, and we don't deserve it. We won't accept it, and I think normalizing, putting it on the actual timeline more, and making people see, yeah, this happens to me every day. Some males be really shocked at that, So I think that would be a really good positive change for football on social media. For my We Deserve Better post on my blog, the story behind that came from, there was a friend of mine who's a sports journalist, and she was sexually harassed by a guy who worked in football media. And that's just shocking, because you think, it was like the first ever message he sent to her for a start, like absolutely no need for it, just sort of vulgar comment. And I just don't think males really get that every day, but we do. Like, I've turned my message requests off on Twitter because I just get the weirdest, horriblest messages ever. And luckily I'm not a journalist, so I don't have to turn my requests on to get like story ideas, but I think some people are, and I think we need to make them feel much more comfortable. And if we just like out people and say they've done this, we're not going to accept it, I think that'll be making a really positive change for us in society and on social media.
Jess, I'm really sorry that you have had to experience that, and thank you so much for sharing your experience with us. I would like to say that it won't happen again, but knowing social media and the type of people who are on the platform, chances are it will repeat itself. So if that does happen again, feel free to reach out to myself or Kick It Out, and we will try our very best to assist you the best way possible. And again, I'm really sorry that you've had to experience that.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Zuleikha, same question to you.
Yeah, I think on the back of, the Black Lives Matter movement, there was a rise in equality, diversity and inclusion roles in football. They just seem to be popping up everywhere. But I think, what the main issue is, cultural and institutional change doesn't happen overnight. It takes time to, change a culture of an organization. And I think the first thing that you can actually do is then, start educating those employees on how to be anti-racist, how to notice and tackle microaggressions, and just make sure that it's important to create that inclusive culture where everyone does feel valued, so people are coming to work and they're not feeling like judged, or they're not feeling judged on what background they're coming from, but they're accepted for who they are. So I think that's the first initial one for me, and how I see change happening in an organization, for example. And just to kind of an area that I've been working on with the university is I launched the UCLAN's Diversity e-mentoring program. So I had a really positive experience on the FA Youth Leader Mentor program, and that was driven by Sarah Nicholas, who was actually a graduate from our university. And I had a really great experience with my mentor, and I wanted to do something that gives something back to students at the university. So I launched this program this year with 3 schools, providing students with shadowing opportunities, mentoring opportunities to support the progression of 15 ethnically diverse students in their industry. So exposure to that insider knowledge, which I really go on about, it's really critical to progress your career, because if you don't know how to get in, you're not going to be able to actually progress your career in the way that you want it to, and as quicker as you want it to as well. So I think that process of building your networks, making network building visible and accessible for young people, encourage them to start thinking about not what's on the paper. We've all got the degree or a great CV, but actually on the networks that they've built and the relationships they've built during the time, whether that's as a student or if you didn't go to university, and think about who's in your network and how can that happen, because like you mentioned before, it's people in those newsrooms, people who are in journalism. It's all about they just pick up the phone to the person they think should get that job. So it's about getting your foot in the door there. And then I think a lot of different ways that organisations can really kind of market their job vacancies to appeal to minority women. There's so much they can do there. We've got people who work in the football industry, but they bring skills from different industries. So we should do more to embrace and encourage women from different industries to understand how their skills are transferable. So, whether that's in finance or operations, but actually, come in, you've got that skill, come in the football industry and use that now. So I think those 3 points, and, like again, Jess talking around how, let the people on social media know that that's not right and that what you're saying is incorrect. But then we need those male allies as well. Let's get men like supporting women, and let's get your voice out there, and you get behind women as well, and you challenge those stereotypes.
Absolutely, spot on. I agree. You all have incredible journeys into the football industry. Although your experience is quite young, it is outstanding. So I have to ask, Jess, could I start with you?
Sorry, I didn't catch the question.
Has been your career highlight so far?
Career highlight? I'd say, well, there's been so many, and I'm really proud of myself for getting from like 0 to where I am now. But mainly in 2019, I undertook some work experience for Manchester United in the media department, and that was from their International Women's Day like campaign. So I must have applied for that like 2 years ago, pretty much. They advertised it on International Women's Day, and like in my head I thought, I'm not going to get it, but let's just do it anyway. It's like I was in my first year in university, and I really didn't think I was going to get it, and I felt like a massive traitor because I'm a Leeds fan, and I thought I'm going to the enemy. But yeah, I got an email quite a few months later saying I was successful, and I was so happy because I just really didn't expect it. And to be given the chance to go there, like, yeah, they're our biggest rivals, but I respect them for how big they are and what they've achieved. Yeah, there were so many incredible women there, like at top levels, who've like worked from the bottom all the way to the top, and it just inspired me to follow their paths. And I'm in touch with them now still, and it's just so really good to see like there's women in such big clubs such as Manchester United. And yeah, I'd say that was my highlight so far, apart from now actually working full-time in football media. That'll always be a special week for me.
It's inspirational. Renuka, same question to you.
I think looking back, my footballing highlight kind of working in this industry would always be, week in, week out, going to the King Power Stadium and reporting there, because it was a volunteer position, but I went there thinking it was the real deal every time, and just doing my best, really learning along the way. And it was such a privilege. I went in that press room, really knowing that it was a privilege to be there every single day. And I think everybody should walk in, go into working into football knowing that it's a privilege, it's so much fun. And just going to that press box was so much fun. I can remember, I can remember all of the press guys, they'd walk through the double doors, get their pies, get their meals in, whatever. The first thing I would do is get in the lift, go up to the press box, because I just loved sitting there and watching the players train and just soaking that in. And that was so much fun. And I'd get little kind of bits of knowledge. They'd kind of practice free kicks or whatever that they'd go on to score in the game. And I'd be like, there you go. He was, thinking about that. But it's just honestly so much fun. And I miss that so much because as volunteers at the hospital station, we don't get to go there at the minute because of the pandemic. And yeah, so that's a highlight, just being there. And, the few times you will see women, it'd be amazing women like Rashmi Chowdhury, Jackie Oatley, Vicky Sparks, Robin Cohen. So it's just amazing. And, when you see that individual, like I see you in the press box, because it is mainly filled by white men. So yeah, such a joy.
Incredible. Thank you for sharing your experience and your highlights. Zuleikha, same question to you.
I think my biggest highlight was probably being listed in the 2019 Muslim Women in Sport Power List, and it was a culmination of a lot of different experiences and volunteering that I did as a student, and initially becoming, you know, the founder and chair of the UCLan Women's Futsal Club. And through that role, I was able to increase the number of Muslim females taking part in futsal at the university and creating that safe space for minority women to come along, because a lot of them didn't want to go outside and play 11-a-side and in the rain and, you know, get muddy. So futsal was the right alternative for them. And I think the club became the most diverse sport club at the university, with, you know, representation across 11 different nationalities, and obviously with the Muslim engagement as well. And one of the success stories from that was one of the students actually went on to go and play for our home country in Gibraltar. So, you know, supporting that progression of women is something I'm really passionate about. So that was that. And then obviously I graduated and I didn't want the club to flop. And a lot of times, you know, these committees and students who are part of these clubs, if they don't have another committee to hand it over, it doesn't carry on into the next year. So I ensured there was a strong committee to carry it through. But, you know, in lockdown, it's not been too great with sport cancelled at the minute. But they've been doing a great job to keep, you know, students active in lockdown. So they've made me really proud. And I think just using that, so obviously I had to leave the university as a student, so I couldn't, you know, take charge anymore, so I had to kind of step away, but I tried to kind of still have that impact in the community, kind of like role modeling young and being a role model and supporting young girls, young Asian girls, to like give a few coaching sessions. Okay, I'm going to give you a bit of a futsal coaching session for about 10 weeks, and then I pursued like, okay, you go now and take up a futsal coaching badge. So it's initiating the kind of opportunity and then creating leaders from within. And that's a lot of the work I do around, you know, creating that sustainability model. So yeah, that's probably the futsal is probably my biggest highlight.
I think we've lost Crystal.
Yeah, I think the question is, why do you matter? So do you want to go first, Jess?
So my whole experience in football is always about empowering women and making them feel comfortable, especially in the workplace, and not feeling different. Like, definitely just loving being a female and what we stand for and our values. Always supporting and respecting each other. Like, girls are so powerful when we support each other, and we always will be. So yeah, that's what I always want to do in my career. If I don't, then I've definitely let myself down, and I always will want to do that. Especially with my blog, and then also just with like personal messages. I do get young girls getting in touch, asking for advice and support on their journey into football, on whatever level that may be, in media or actually playing in football. I'll always support women, and that's like one of my biggest roles, really.
Thank you for that, Jess. And Renuka, could I have your answer to that? Why do you matter?
Yeah, I guess I matter because, as it stands, I'm a minority in football journalism. I think the least represented individual in football journalism right now is women from diverse ethnic backgrounds. And I know the Black Collective Media and Sport did some amazing research, and I think it was something like 11 out of 338 women were from a BAME background covering major sporting events in 2018, and only 96 out of 338 were women. So, you know, I think one moment that really sticks out to me is when I was in the box, King Power box, there was a young South Asian girl looking up at me in the press box. And in that moment, I thought, well, if she can see it, you know, I don't know, she was maybe just looking up. But if she can look up at the press box and see someone like her, that's just huge. And I think that was huge for me as well when I was thinking about getting into this industry, because somebody I looked up to a lot was Rashmi Chowdhury, you know. And so it's huge, the impact of seeing someone like you who works in an industry you aspire to be in can have. And, you know, that goes beyond broadcast media as well. I think where we really do need to kind of work hard in is the written media. You know, we've always talked about national newspapers, local newspapers even. I mean, the number of women, let alone the number of women from diverse ethnic backgrounds who work in, you know, the written media is shameful. It really is. And I think that's why I'm here, because you just need to talk about these things. And I think, Crystal, you mentioned it, it can be exhausting talking about diversity and representation, but at the same time, it's kind of like, if you won't, who will? Because, you know, there are a lot of people out there who are comfortable with the way the state of the media is right now. And so you need to continue to push for that change. And so I think that's why I matter.
And Zuleikha, same question to you, please.
Yeah, I think that's really inspiring. You know, young girls looking up to you and seeing like that they can potentially, you know, be you one day. And I think that's what it is all about, really, isn't it? And I think it's, you know, just building on that. I think it's, you just don't know who you might inspire. You just, you know, you might be doing a lot of things, but, you know, your interactions with people and your character and how you speak to people and how you have the ability to change mindsets, it's really, really powerful. And I don't think anyone, you know, on this call should have that undermine their ability to have an impact on people's lives, because you've all got a unique skill that you can do, whether that's being an ally or, you know, changing mindsets, changing cultural perceptions. It's a real powerful thing. So yeah, just take an example. I've supported and encouraged Muslim women to see that sport is a viable career. A lot of, you know, Muslim women, they get you know, targeted to go to careers such as, you know, finance or banking or dentistry or medicine, and they don't really see sport as a viable career. So having honest and open conversations, you know, with their families and with them, and so that they can, you know, go on to think about, okay, maybe I want to pursue this certain career. And I think, you know, the FA are doing some great work at the minute with the equality, diversity and inclusion officers in the different areas, and they're supporting, you know, with coaching opportunities, CPD opportunities, but targeted at specific, you know, minority women. And I think initiatives like that are really helpful. And, you know, just before I mentioned around the British Red Cross, my time volunteering there, just this last year, I saw students actually coming to study at the university, you know, on a foundation degree. And, you know, that could have just been, you know, a bit of an interaction that you've had, a bit of a, you know, sitting down with people, getting to know them, and, you know, having some great conversations can actually lead to people, you know, going on to have some really great careers as well. So, yeah.
Incredible. You're all inspirational figures. So I just want to say thank you so much for being who you are. Please continue to be your incredible selves, and please continue to inspire not just our generation, but more importantly, the next generation who are, you know, pretty much locked eyes on us and expecting us to continue to make meaningful changes. So thank you so much for that. Also, thank you to our audience. There's 101 of you in our chat. No one has left, which I'm quite pleased about, because obviously I've had so many technical difficulties. So thank you for not logging out, and thank you for giving us a moment of your time. Before we close the conversation, we have a chat here from Elaine Longmore, and she actually asked us this over the weekend, so I can't leave without mentioning her chat. She says, please support the London Youth Game, #LG33. So that's from Elaine Longmore. So guys, please support the London Youth Games. And again, thank you once more for giving us a moment of your time, and enjoy the rest of International Women's Day.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Happy International Women's Day.
Happy International Women's Day, everyone.